Can you speak up, please, sir? You're muffled.
Bermuda system
Thank you. Go ahead, yes.
takes in. This is what we are. You know, we are consumers. The general public has been designed to consume, right? And until we start looking at how we could change the system and educate our people about consumption and the other things that bring about where we are at, and we got some major problems. And I tell the brothers, just keep up the good work, make the points known, because it's time to start educate the general public where we're at and what we need to do to straighten up ourselves.
When you're coming on, let's talk. You going? All right, my brother. Yeah, a lot of the other points that she was making in there, in terms of the corporations and the governments. I don't know if any of you want to tackle that.
What points?
In terms of government is supposed to be working for the people, but in a lot of the instances now, I mean, for instance, in the States we have these lobby groups. We don't have that kind of thing in Bermuda, but it exists, and I mean that's a really pertinent point.
Well, we have interest groups like Greenrock, BESS, different organizations.
But he's talking about, I think, corporate lobbyists.
Yeah, corporate lobbyists, yeah.
Versus, environmental lobbyists or activists.
How much does that contribute to the problem?
Well, I think, it's been brought up already that we're living in a profit-driven society. So money becomes the main paradigm that everyone starts to work around. So we say, like, everybody has to make a living. And people develop businesses to make profits. Governments need funds to be able to provide the services that's required for the community. So you have these relationships that need to be managed. And the more finances that government finds itself needing, then the more the government needs to pay attention to the corporations, which become the main source of those finances. So you have this balancing act, because you have the needs of the people to service, whilst you have to maintain these relationships with the corporations. So at the moment, the view is that it's out of balance, because the corporations are getting bigger and bigger. They have more power, they have more influence and things of that nature. So people start to wonder, well, are governments really running countries, or are corporations really running countries?
And Glad made a comment about corporations and governments, but we won't repeat it on the air. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Good evening, Gary. I'm going to echo the last caller and the gentleman when he's talking about corporations, and that is a fact. We have developed a building system, and the North America will not use it because it interferes with, it will put too many people that in the wood system out of work. It's amazing. It's only money driven. Everything is profit driven, as they say. And unless we have little countries like us doing our own thing and not buying their stuff, it's going to make them change their mind. I would like to, before the gentleman leave, is to give me the phone number of the Greenrock so I can call them.
Okay, sir, thank you very much.
What?
But that's an important point. And the converse of that, these industries that we're criticizing provide work.
Yeah, I'd like to put this whole context of the government working for the people and put it into a Bermuda context. And I'll be quite honest about this. One of the things I think we face in Bermuda, and the transition has occurred quite a bit, is that the people who are elected officials come into power, and then when they get into power, the whole power sort of affects their ability to make decisions, in that they are no longer focused just on the delegates that voted them in. They're focused on the party system. And then what's also happening is, and we've seen this over the years, is that they're also focusing on their livelihood, because as a politician, their livelihood depends on that. As a result of that, and you see this, very much in the United States, because the lobbyist groups, because of the fact that it costs so much to run their elections, they need that corporate money. And Obama's trying to change that. In Bermuda, we need to start to really look at this, because unfortunately the pay salaries and all that stuff that elected officials are receiving now, they're better off in politics than they are when they're not in politics.
The private sector.
And this is where we've got to find a balance, and it's a hard one. And I don't have an exact answer there, but I can tell you from a sustainable political perspective, we need to find a better system.
1 second, Gene.
Okay.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Good evening, Mr. Moreno, and to your panel.
Good evening, ma'am.
I would like to make a contribution as a senior citizen.
Uh-huh.
And I recall when I was growing up, we recycled big time.
Yeah.
The sodas came in bottles, and we took the bottles back to the store and got money.
6 months.
Milk
cleaned them
came
out.
in bottles, and we also got money back for the milk bottles. And I think people also use the soda bottles for baby bottles to put the milk in. They had nipples that fit the the soda bottles.
How long ago was that, ma'am?
Like around 60 years ago, 50 years ago. And we also had cloth diapers. We didn't have all this disposable stuff. We washed them and hung them in the sun to dry. We had no washing machines or dryers. Everything was done by hand.
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution, ma'am.
Okay.
And what's interesting, like for example, I go to Zurich a lot, and Zurich is a very modern city, very cosmopolitan They actually still have soda bottles there, because their government has set up a requirement that if you were to sell soda, you have to have it in a bottle. And any plastics that are introduced, there's a charge to the distributor for introducing those plastics into the Zurich. And then another thing, in France, they actually have subsidies on the whole diaper, so you can get away from, because one of the biggest toxins is diapers, believe it or not. It's one of these products that it's just terrible for the environment.
With the recent increases in fees, it costs $85 per ton to dump trash at Tynes Bay. This has become a huge moneymaker for the government. There is really no incentive for government to recycle when they are now making so much money from the incinerator, which is producing dioxins.
Well, the interesting thing about that point is, and again, I'm not going to try to step into works in engineering, but what I know, one of the costs that they're incurring for the collection is to pay for some of the recycling materials that they ship off.
Overseas.
And, what's interesting is if you look at from a distance and you start examining policies that are put in place and budget changes, and a little bit of what I was saying earlier, one would say, why is their budgets always being cut? Because if they weren't being cut, maybe they would have more resources to do more things with recycling. So that's, again, one of the reasons we have to get the government back in focus.
I want to come back to this. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, good evening, Gary, and your guest.
Good evening, sir.
It's good to hear. I'm interested in what's being said, but you know what? We have such a mindset and such a fashion, even in the way in which we eat or drink or whatever. And just listen to that other guy earlier talk about the water, and that he's always drank tap water, tank water, and so on. It's incredible that at one time we would complain about the guy coming to our house and bringing us 1,000 gallons of water, and the price went up. I don't know what it was, from $50 to $60 or $70, $80 for 1,000 gallons of water, and yet we didn't complain about the storekeepers who now sell us a liter of water, just a liter, for $1. So you buy you pay $1,000 for 1,000 liters of water, and yet you can get it in your from the guy at the selling it to you in a truck for $50, $60, $70.
Right.
And you pay $1,000 in the shop, but you don't complain to the shopkeeper about the price of his water.
Thank you very much, sir.
Our mindset is crazy, fashionable, but we're spending a whole lot of money.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Now that is the essence of all of this. $1,000 for 1,000 liters of water.
Yeah.
When you could pay $60 and drink it out of
How
your
many
tank.
liters in a gallon?
How many liters in a gallon?
It's 2 something.
2 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I want to come back to something. Everybody I've heard so far is blaming government.
what about personal responsibility?